Well, a very good evening to you all from Greater Manchester. Well, tonight I am in Wigan at the Brick Community Stadium and once again joined by a group of phenomenal, superlative, loyal reformers. Good evening, Wigan! Well, I have to say, look, it feels pretty fitting to be here in a football stadium. Let me just explain why. And it's pretty fitting because, obviously, we have just launched Reform FC. Now, as you know, we have launched our stunning turquoise number 10 Farage football kits at conference. And I have to tell you, they have been selling like hot cakes. Also, let me just show you. I've got my very own one as well. Yeah, that's right. So, as you can see, I've got Bull written on the back. 29, that's when we thought the election was going to be. I think it might be sooner, don't you? Yeah. Well, along with Tice, Anderson, Pochin and the rest of the team, you will be able to buy a whole set and they will be truly collector's items. Now, it is only Wednesday and it has been quite a week for Reform UK. On Monday, we stunned the political world by unveiling our latest star striker, welcoming Danny Kruger MP to the front line. Now, he is the first sitting Conservative MP to defect to us, taking our total to 5. Now, I was there at that press conference on Monday and his most memorable line at that press conference was, "The Conservative Party is dead. The Conservative Party is no longer the official opposition to Labour." And guess what? He is right. The official opposition to this disastrous government is now us. It is Reform UK. Now, Danny actually went further to say that he is honoured to help the party prepare for government. And make no mistake, come that general election, Reform UK will become that government and Nigel Farage will become Britain's next Prime Minister, won't he? Well, now, let's remind ourselves of what happened on Monday.
How can a team of people who've never been in government think about going into government? The only responsible thing is to prepare. And that's why I announced we'll be setting up a department preparing for government. So the man that has been given the job, his name is Danny Kruger. He joins me on the stage now.
I hoped after our defeat last year that the Conservative Party would learn the obvious lesson, but no. The Conservative Party is over. But I am not despondent, because the failure of the Conservative Party has created space for an alternative. The best hope we have, maybe our last hope, is Nigel Farage. I am proud to follow him, and I hope others will do the same, because Britain needs reform.
So that was on Monday. Now, I think it's fair to say that Keir Starmer has had a pretty miserable month. Now, first of all, we wave goodbye and not before time to the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. Bye, Angela. Yeah, and then, of course, next up, it was Adios, a former ambassador to the US. Peter Mandelson, he disappeared, didn't he? And let me tell you, knowing Peter Mandelson as I do, he will not go down without a fight. So I suggest you buy some popcorn as we watch the counterattack, which is bound to come, and actually see what happens. And of course, they say that things come in threes. So the big question I have tonight is who is next to be kicked out of Cabinet? Let me just ask you, who would you most like to see go? Oh, with one in unison, it was... Well, there you go. Well, today, yet another Labour councillor has switched sides to us, and the Labour project is being, quite frankly, shredded in front of our very eyes. Let me just tell you, Keir Starmer is in big trouble. In fact, he's in huge trouble. Andy Burnham, here in this particular area of the country, is on manoeuvres, as is Wes Streeting. How much longer, though, can Keir Starmer actually last? We shall see. I think a general election is coming much sooner than we think, and Reform UK is making huge inroads. Now, at the last election here in Wigan, Lisa Nandy won this seat for Labour with 19,000 votes. Reform UK, yes, you can boo, but wait for the punchline. Reform UK came second with just under 10,000. Now, if we then fast forward to today, according to electoral calculus, if there was a general election tomorrow, Reform UK would take, wait for this, 42% of the vote. It would seize this parliamentary seat, and Lisa Nandy would be kicked to the curb unceremoniously. Well, it really is all to play for here in this part of the world. Now, in Greater Manchester, we need to find 215 candidates. In Lancashire, we need to find 108 candidates. So please, think about this. Consider applying by clicking the link on our website, which says Stand For Us. Think about it and do it. Now, back to tonight's show, we have a fantastic lineup of guests for you. We're going to kick off with Manchester's very own Dan Barker. Now, Dan was actually our mayoral candidate for Greater Manchester in 2024. He defected from the Conservative Party in March of last year, and I'll be talking to him about the democratisation of the party, also his first board meeting, and why he made the move to Reform UK. Then we'll hear from political commentator, GB News presenter, author and professor of politics, Matt Goodwin. And Matt will give us an insight into the latest polling trends, why Reform UK is on the rise, and, crucially, how we maintain that lead. And to round things off, we'll be joined by the leader of Lancashire County Council, Stephen Atkinson, who will be discussing the importance of delivering at the local level if we are to become the next party of government. Well, when I took over as chairman, which I think was 4 months ago, I promised that I would democratise the party, and we have done just that. Now, we invited our Reform UK members to apply to join the board of the party. That is the decision-making governing body of the party itself. Now, once we received the applications, I then hosted our live hustings event from HQ, and you, all of you at home, voted for 3 members to join that party board. And then we went on to hold our first board meeting. That was the week before conference, and we were joined by our newly elected members. They, of course, Dan Barker, Darren Grimes and Gawain Towler. Now, the pictures you're seeing now are of the first board meeting. You can see I'm hidden there, but I'm chairing that meeting. Nigel Farage is there. Gawain Towler is there. I can see Charlton, our treasurer, Zia Youssef. Dan is there as well, also hidden from view at the moment. And, of course, as I say, this is the big decision-making body of the party itself. This is about making sure this party is democratised, and that is something I promised that I would do. And that brings me very nicely to my first guest. He was Reform UK's candidate for Mayor of Greater Manchester. He is a branch chairman and serves as Greater Manchester's county coordinator. He's got an amazing backstory, actually. He's worked in the nuclear and defence industry for decades, overseeing complex high-risk projects. And if that wasn't enough, he's also served as a magistrate because he passionately believes in justice, law and order, and public service. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dan Barker. Really good to see you, Dan. Obviously, I'm now starting to see quite a lot of you, given that you're now on the board. How did you feel when you found out that, and it was really tough competition, wasn't it, to go onto the board? How did you actually feel when you were elected onto the board? Now, let me just tell you, Dan didn't just sneak in. He got over 20,000 votes to join the board and the controlling body of the party.
Thank you. Well, can I just say thank you for having me on tonight, and can I thank everyone who voted for me? Thank you very much. And I was very surprised to get the call on the Friday morning. I had quite a busy day at work, and I actually thought, well, I had really good fun for the last 2 or 3 weeks, getting out and about and all the campaigning. And I thought, I've got to just get on with the day. And I got a phone call about 8:30 in the morning, and I couldn't believe it. You know, that actually won, up against people like Darren Grimes, Michael Heaver, Alex Wilson. They all got big profiles or online or in the party. So I was really pleased to have won, really pleased, yes. And
of course, we held that first board meeting. I was determined we did it before conference, which we did. How did you find the first board meeting?
It's very interesting because I've never really spent that much time with Nigel, for instance. I've been on the campaign trail with him, but there was lots of cameras around. So it was good to see him being himself, being relaxed. I thought he cracked a lot of jokes. It was very entertaining, actually. So,
he is very entertaining.
He is very entertaining, yes. But it was a good meeting. I think there was, I think for the three of us, sort of feeling our way to see what our role is, how do we fit in, how does this work. But I felt as the meeting went on, it really we got into our stride.
And of course, we take it very seriously indeed. And in terms of the agenda, which I went through, appointing various people to that board.
Yes.
We are running this very seriously indeed, and that shows, doesn't it, in terms of the board?
Yes, it's like a normal, like a board meeting for a company. We had to have votes on decisions, proposed, seconded, and voted on, and it was all minuted, which is what you'd expect at that sort of level.
And so one of the things that I keep talking about is it's essential for us to democratise the party. I've said this in the media as well. Nigel has done an amazing job, but we have to broaden the offering. It can't be just the Nigel Farage show. And of course, that's why he's brought people in like yourself, like me, to the party as well. It's an important message also externally, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people are looking at this and saying, what's behind Nigel Farage? Is there any more depth? Are there more people there? What's the talent? And also making sure, and this is the most important thing, is that the members, who are the heart and soul of the party, know that they've got a say, they've got a voice, that their desires and hopes are taken into account by the board.
And you see, one of the phrases I use the whole time is we're building this party from the ground up, not the top down. Yeah. And that is what makes us different, I think, from the other parties that people can vote for. And I'm delighted, actually, that it has gone down very well with the members. Is that your experience?
The feedback I've had has been phenomenal. I mean, I just want to hope that I can live up to people's expectations and get around enough places and talk to enough people so that I can represent them faithfully at the board meetings in future. So.
Now, we've just had our conference. Yeah. I think it's fair to say it was a pretty wild affair. It was a spectacle, it was serious, it was also showing the party has changed. This party is confident, it is going in one direction, and that is the direction of government. And of course, all the newspapers are writing about us, trying to find divisions and splits within the party. That wasn't the case at all. How did you find conference?
I mean, I went to the one last year, which I really enjoyed, a lot of energy, but I think we went, a step forward this time, a lot bigger, a lot more serious, still the kind of high energy, rah, 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 but there was also a lot more about serious debate, about policy, about the direction as well.
And of course, I brought you on stage at conference. There were a lot of people there. How did you find that?
It actually went better than I thought it would. It's the first time I've been on stage like that, and I actually quite enjoyed it.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. And of course, what we did differently, and as we grow, of course, we saw corporate sponsors coming in. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, those big corporate sponsors only like to back a winner. And that is why I find this absolutely fascinating. And we saw that, didn't we, with the breakout sessions? We saw it with the different theatres as well. It was much bigger than last year.
I would say more than double, and not just the attendance. I in past times, been to the Conservative conference in Manchester, and I think next year I would say we'll be on a par with that or better.
Yeah. So obviously I'm watching the membership numbers. We know I think we're at about 248,000, nearly 250,000 members to this party. If I look back to say 6 years ago when I started with the party, obviously we were the Brexit party before. We had maybe 10,000, 12,000 members. To get to sort of 240, 250,000 members. Yes. We've overtaken the Conservative Party, and we're about to overtake Labour.
I mean, it's a phenomenal achievement, and I think what it speaks to is we're bigger than just a party. This is a movement. It's about people's values, about people wanting to step up to save the country. We see the perilous position that we're in now as a country, and I think people realise that reform is the vehicle for saving the country.
So when I'm out and about, and maybe you can shed your thoughts on this, when I'm out and about, I have never felt what I'm seeing around the country. It doesn't matter where I go. I'm sort of greeted and hugged and kissed by people saying, "You are the last," not me, but you are the last hope. Your party is the last hope for the United Kingdom, which is basically going downhill by the day.
Yes, I mean, it is worrying when you see the news and you see, who are we going to get after Keir Starmer, because it's a Hobson's choice, really, isn't it? But I think, we need to make sure that we are, we carry on what we're doing, we keep building, and we use that positive energy and we turn that into something useful, get into government, get power and start to change the country.
So one of the things that we have to be very careful about is we're riding very high in the polls. We're polling consistently at 30, 31, 32, even 35%. What do you think we as a party have to do to keep that momentum, to ensure that we continue to grow and not go backwards?
Well, I think it's great while we're polling high, but we can't just rely on that. We've got to have the tools to win street by street, ward by ward. That means that every branch knows they can, when it comes to the general election, that we can get that seat and by a comfortable margin. So it's down to getting the tools in place and the discipline and just working at it.
And just in terms of the national mood, I mentioned this, I saw the union flags tied to lampposts, for example. I think people are absolutely sick and tired of what is going on in this country. For you, if I was to push you and to say, what are the 3 issues that have most resonance for people in this country, what would they be?
I think at the moment, there's no doubt, and this is in no particular order, but immigration, because I think people see with the hotels, and then when it's not hotels, it's HMOs, it's being spread out further and deeper into the communities. That's unsettling people, because it's on the doorstep. The children, the women and daughters are the ones now being put at risk. So I think that's really ramming it home about this failed immigration policy. Number 2, I think, is law and order.
Yeah.
Because I think people see the lawlessness, the fact that the police seem to have just given up on some crimes. And I would also say that people are worried about the economy, the amount of people on welfare, the way that Labour don't seem to care, that, all the business are saying, stop, you're hurting us, while you put more and more people on welfare. I mean, it's just going to be, it's a spiral, isn't it?
And of course, what the Labour government doesn't seem to understand is by increasing employers' national insurance, what's happening is the companies can't afford to employ anyone, so they're not taking people on, and therefore they're adding to the unemployment figures and indeed the benefits bill, and that all has to stop. In terms of that law and order, we ran the Britain is Lawless campaign over the summer. It was a huge success.
I think that really hit home with people because people can see this, when they go into, they see shoplifting and everyone just stands around while the shoplifters just help themselves and everyone's powerless to do anything. If you step in, you risk being, accused of assault. And I think we've got to get back to basics in this country, restore law and order, have some morality back in, in everyday, normal places, and make sure the police do the job properly.
And now, in terms of campaigning, we're a relatively new party. We don't have the tools that the other parties, Labour and the Conservatives, have had, and we are actually data gathering from scratch, pretty much. How are you finding the campaigning on the doorstep?
I think, where we are going out in by-election and the like, the response is phenomenal. The people really want change. They seem pleased when Reform stand a candidate. Maybe, in one of my wards, there was a choice between sort of Green and Labour, and they actually chose Green because they were sick of Labour. But what a Hobson's choice that is, where now with the Reform candidate standing in future elections, then they really have got a chance for change.
So as you know, we have a huge task. We have to find 5,000 candidates to stand for us. Now, if you look at the vetting, and we are doing deep vetting on everyone who comes through and to ensure that they are the right sort of people that will represent the party and the country, that means we probably need to get through about 9,000. What message would you send to people watching tonight, people here, for example, who are sick and tired, who want to stand up, who want to fight for their communities, their countries, their families? What's the message to them about putting their name forward, standing up and saying, I want to be counted?
Well, 2 things. I think firstly, if you went back a year or 2 ago, there's a little bit of personal risk in standing for Reform. I don't think that's the case now because I think people can see we are going to the next government and that we've broken through that sort of ceiling and we're a mainstream party. But the other thing I would say is, don't expect someone else to step up. You need to step up. Well, now's the time. Today's the day. Make sure that you go forward because we need to repeat and exceed what we did last year next May because we've got to keep the momentum going. Once you lose the momentum, it's very hard to get it back. And that responsibility rests on everyone to do that, to play their part.
Fantastic. How confident are you we can win?
I think we can win. I think there's a general election tomorrow. I think we would get a big majority.
I think I agree. Yeah. Don't you?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Barker. Well, my next guest is a British political commentator. He's a GB News presenter. He's also Professor of Politics at the University of Kent. Now, he has written numerous books on British politics, including Brexit, Why Britain Voted to Leave the European Union. I know exactly why we voted to leave, having actually worked in the European Parliament. Now, his areas of interest include populism, nationalism, Euroscepticism, Brexit, political realignment, and the rise of right-wing movements in Europe and the United Kingdom. Now, just before we meet him, let's see him in action.
My name is Matt Goodwin, and I want my country back. I want my country back from the politicians who thought it was acceptable to impose an extreme policy of mass uncontrolled immigration on our country, a policy which nobody in this country ever voted for. Complaining about the state of the country isn't enough. This is actually a movement that has a serious plan from illegal migration, legal migration, the economy, the state, woke ideology. It was ahead of the curve at the election on all of these issues. It's #1 in the polls. So what I'm saying is, don't be pessimistic about the country. Don't leave today thinking everything's terrible. Think you're part of a movement that's #1 in the polls. Your job is to leave today and tell everybody in your world to come join the People's Army. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Matt Goodwin. Matt, really good to see you. Really good to see you. Now, you've obviously been keeping a close eye. I watch you on social media. You post a lot about the polls. What do the polls currently show?
Well, the polls nationally show that this movement is now averaging about 31% of the national vote, and it is heading into number 10 Downing Street with an overwhelming majority. That is what the polls are showing. So I think this is the most significant political insurgency this country has seen since the rise of the Labour Party in the early 20th century. This is historic, what we're seeing. And remember those local elections. That was the first time in contemporary history that any party outside of the big two had really swept the board. So this is really history-making stuff.
But of course, everyone's trying to write us off. So the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, oh, it's a flash in the pan. They won't get above 25%. Then we did. You won't get above 30%. Then we did. So the message to those other parties, to the big beasts, the big politicians, I think, is no one is safe.
Well, I would agree with you. I remember in the 2010s people saying during the Brexit campaign, you know, Nigel Farage would never get over 15% of the vote. And here we are with a party that's on 31, 32, or according to some recent polls, as high as 34% of the vote. And remember, David, this is before we've got to the Labour budget. This is before we experience more economic hardship this winter, because the sad fact about our country is food prices are going to go up. Energy prices are going to go up. The small boat numbers are going to go up. So my assumption here is the 31, 32% that we're seeing now, that's going to keep going up. I don't think Labour and the Conservatives have a viable response to reform. The Labour Party, according to YouGov, one of the most credible pollsters, just fell to its lowest level on record. You know, Keir Starmer and his party now are about as popular in this country as Meghan Markle.
Wow.
But Harry's back.
Yeah, wow, that popular. There's something else really interesting going on, actually. If you look at social demographics, if you look at C2DE voters, those of lower socioeconomic standing, they are switching in their droves to us, which is not necessarily what you would have expected.
Well, the alarm clock class, the people that have to get up in the morning, set the alarms, get up in the morning, go to work. Here's one stat about British politics that very few people know, and you've noticed it clearly. 40% of all working class voters are currently planning to vote Reform, which is twice as many who are planning to vote for Labour, which is more than twice as many who are planning to vote for the Tories. This is the most popular political party among British workers.
It's extraordinary. There's something else going on as well. I talk about the fact that people see a lack of fairness in this country. It seems that if you arrive on a small boat, you're treated better than someone who sets their alarm, as you say, at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, that goes out, does 2, 3 jobs, tries to put food on the table, for example. But another demographic change we are seeing, and this is what is thrown at me the whole time, saying, well, all your voters are old. They aren't. We welcome voters of any age, but the point is actually we're attracting a lot of young people, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't think the description of reform voters that you just referenced is true. I was in Halifax last night with a group of 18-year-olds planning to vote reform, and they were saying a lot of their friends at school, early years of university, they just can't publicly come out and say it among their peer group yet, but as the previous speaker just said, they will increasingly say that. Just one thing about this notion of fairness. I'll tell you what has really struck me about this country right now and about the Labour government, just briefly. This is a government in phase 2.
Was it 2 or 3 or 4? I forget.
I can't wait for phase 3. But this is a government in phase 2 that is using the British people's money, taxpayers' money, to bankroll private companies, to offer more favourable housing contracts to illegal migrants, to asylum seekers than they're offering to the British people. How the hell is that fair? It's not fair, it's not right, it's not just. We are the party, I would say, Reform are the party that are going to stop that.
So when you do your modelling, where is the vote coming from? Because I mentioned earlier on, when I go around the country, I am seeing something that I've never seen. I am getting working class people who tribally voted Labour coming to us. I'm seeing Conservatives, lifelong Conservatives, where their families for generations have voted Conservative. I'm seeing farmers who are so disillusioned by what the government has done. The fishermen, Keir Starmer giving away our fish for another 12 years. The whole point of Brexit was to take back control of our money, laws and borders. We have done absolutely none of that.
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. So I think the answer to the question is we're taking votes from lots of different places. Right now, about a third of the Conservative Party vote has simply moved over to Reform. Now, remember, that's on top of a lot of previous Conservative voters before 2024 who had already moved over to Reform. Also eating into a massive chunk, about 55% of that Brexit vote is now standing behind the Reform Party. So what is happening? Let's just be clear, because it's really important. When Boris Johnson won that big majority in 2019, and he promised everybody, I will lower the overall numbers, I will reduce immigration, I will control the borders. I'm just going to be frank with everybody, because I think everyone in this room knows this already, and many of the viewers may too. Boris Johnson and the Tories betrayed their voters, they lied to the country, and they set the stage for the disaster that we see around us today. I mean, put it just briefly, David. If you invited an architect into your house and that architect destroyed your house, you would not invite that architect back. So what's happening is Reform are really reaching into that big realignment of politics that Brexit made possible, but they're really expanding it. And that's why I think we are going to see something truly historic, because it's not going to be necessarily Brighton and London that are going to be rallying around Reform. Although actually I think we've got a good chance at the London mayoral election, but I'll come back and talk about that another time. I think it's going to be the small towns, the medium towns, the seaside communities, the fishing communities, the working class bastions, the Red Wall, Wales, parts of Scotland. They're all now going to send this big message to the establishment, the same message we can see flying off those lampposts outside, which is we've had enough. Enough is enough. We want change, and we want it right now.
And of course, we've got massive elections in Wales and Scotland. We're polling currently at 28% in Wales. We're polling at about 22% in Scotland. This is unprecedented territory, isn't it?
Wales is going to be absolutely massive. What we're going to see next year is essentially the death of the Tory party as a national party. Reform are going to do incredibly well in all of those traditional Labour areas, the home of the Industrial Revolution, across the Red Wall. I was also in Washington and Sunderland earlier this week. The energy in the northeast of England is through the roof. A lot of those seats are going to fall as well, I think. And so people have realised the Labour Party is no longer a party for Labour. It is no longer a party for workers. It is a party for virtue signalling, socially liberal, to be blunt, people who kind of hate who we are. They're embarrassed of who we are, and we're not.
Starmer knows he's in trouble, Labour knows it's in trouble, and yet they're like ferrets in a sack. They're fighting, they have no idea what they're doing, plucking policies out left, right and centre. One of the things they thought they would capitalise on is to reduce the voting age, because they think young people will vote for Labour. That is not proving to be true. I'm talking to 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds who are very militant, who will, when they're old enough, vote Reform.
So I think there's going to be a very interesting battle among those young voters. My colleague, Sir John Curtis, who many people will know, John's made the argument that giving 16-year-olds the vote, it's not going to have as big an effect as people think. It's not going to necessarily determine the outcome of the next election, but also they're not necessarily going to vote the way people think. And what you're alluding to is correct. I think particularly young men, actually, I think there is a sense among young boys that they're in a society and a culture now that it doesn't just misunderstand them, but doesn't really value them. We saw this with the adolescence drama on Netflix, this sort of constant contempt, particularly of white working class boys in this society and in this country. And I think that will find its expression with those people moving over to Reform. I think Jeremy Corbyn and, Jezbollah, or whatever your favourite word is. I think that's going to cause a bit of a problem for the Labour Party too among some
Well, I was
younger
going to say
voters.
with Corbyn and Sultana, I've said this before, fruit and nut. They are going to do something quite interesting, aren't they? Because actually they're going to peel off tribally very left-wing Labour voters.
Yeah.
If they sort out your party or Jezbollah or whatever they call it, that could have a huge impact on Labour.
And it could also, by the way, really help Reform. The more of this infighting on the left, the more that Jeremy Corbyn goes to war with Keir Starmer or Lucy Powell or Andy Burnham or whoever. By the way, just as an aside, I don't think Andy Burnham could necessarily win a by-election and find himself in Parliament. I think we're going to win that seat if it comes up, by the way. Just as an aside.
Yeah. I mean, so I mentioned earlier on that they're all on manoeuvres. There's no doubt Andy Burnham is on manoeuvres, and of course he needs a parliamentary seat. So he's looking at this kind of area. Gorton and Denton is one that keeps coming up. We've heard that possibly the incumbent member of Parliament may try and stand down for grounds of ill health. Burnham thinks that's a shoo-in. I looked at the polls. It is not a shoo-in by any means.
No, not at all. It's a bit like Runcorn, where Labour came in very confident. They said, this is one of our safest seats. Reform ended up with Sarah Pochen blowing them away, because we're seeing things we haven't seen before in British history. There is a mood out there in the country, I know you know it, you've been out there, you've been touring, there is a mood out there which is essentially, look, we want to save our country. We want to take our country back. And we are no longer remotely interested in the uniparty, in the two parties who have presided over the last 30 years, who have essentially almost destroyed our home. Remember, that's what Roger Scruton said, the English philosopher. A nation isn't just a set of documents. A nation isn't just what you see on your passport. A nation is your home. And many people out there are sick and tired of seeing their home being destroyed.
I would agree totally. We mentioned the economy, we mentioned immigration. If you were to put them in order, I will ask you the same question I asked Dan. What are the three big issues? Is immigration going to be the big issue at the next election? Keir Starmer says the one in, one out deal, which even on paper is a rubbish deal. It's failed for the third day in a row. They've got planes standing by with no one on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 180,000 in and 0 out so far. I think immigration is front and centre to why people are voting Reform. But let's also remember, this is also about people who are dealing with the biggest cost of living crisis since the Second World War. This is about young people grappling with a housing crisis on a scale we've not had before. And this is also about crime. This is about people looking out at their communities. You know, you will have read about the criminality in this area today, another really shocking incident involving a guy on the run with a weapon around a local school. You know, people are sick of this. They want the rule of law to be respected. They want criminals to be punished. They want them to stay in prison when they're actually given sentences. And they want the borders to be controlled. And they want that sense of fairness that you alluded to earlier on, that sense of fair play that has long defined these islands. That has to be upheld. Otherwise, the social contract will end up collapsing. Yeah. So we need to, I think, get back to basics. And that's what's going to drive this movement, I think, into that higher territory.
I mentioned, and very quickly and finally, I mentioned they are trying to caricature us, me, Richard, Nigel, the rest of us in the party, as sort of almost insane mavericks who are working against each other. That couldn't be further from the truth. But just in terms of now we are seeing defections. I have repeatedly said, as has Nigel, as had Richard, we don't want failed Tories. We want the best people to stand for this party. Now, Danny Kruger... Danny Kruger coming across is very significant for lots of reasons, because he will help us prepare for government. The Tories I have spoken to are absolutely shocked. They're devastated and flabbergasted that he has come over, and the press don't know what to make of it.
Well, Danny Kruger's a very, very significant defection. I've known him for several years. If you don't know who he is, I would urge you to go onto YouTube and watch his speech about the Christian foundations of our country. Another thing people don't know about Danny Kruger is he has been especially focused on opposing woke ideology, on opposing this new religion among the ruling class that would have us believe that little boys can become little girls and little girls can become little boys. Danny has been outspoken on all of these issues, and I think, you know, this movement is going to become incredibly powerful so long as it doesn't become a Tory tribute act, right? That's the critical point. So take the best of the best, leave the rest, right? We don't want the architects of the last 30 years. We want the people who have a strong track record of saying, look, we oppose mass immigration. We oppose woke ideology. We want strong borders. We want to put the British people first. That's what this is about, putting the hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding British majority first. That's what we need to get back to, those core principles. I think Danny ticks all of the boxes. I know Nigel is keenly aware of that issue and that strategic calculation that has to be made. So, and you know, David, just to say, the fact we're even talking about preparing for government, the fact that I went to Birmingham at the conference and what people were saying is, well, look, you know, what are we going to do first? Constitutional changes with the House of Lords or leave the ECHR? And this party is only a few years old, but such is the momentum and such is the strength that it has, that we can now actually have a conversation about, okay, what do we want to change in this country and what does that look like? So I'm incredibly bullish about the direction of travel.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Goodwin. Thank you. Well, my final guest is the leader of Lancashire County Council. He's also head of Reform UK at the Local Government Association, and he is extremely passionate about Lancashire and the people that he actually represents. Now, let me tell you, Reform UK has an astonishing 53 out of 84 seats on the council, and they are doing an amazing job showing exactly how Reform UK run councils are making a real difference to residents' lives, as I found out for myself when I went to visit Lancashire County Council. Let's take a look.
Look at this, a sea of turquoise. This is what we want to see across the country.
Today is a really important day. I'm here in Preston at the very impressive headquarters of Lancashire County Council. The team have done an amazing job here. In fact, I have the 24-month plan in my hand as to what our council is going to do to deliver for the people of Lancashire. The reason this is so important is we have to prove that we are competent at local government level. This is the first step as we proceed
to form a party of government in Westminster. The proof of the pudding is in the eating thereof. On another stop of my whirlwind tour around the United Kingdom, in Stratford-upon-Avon, we've made amazing progress here. Since the general election, we've actually gone up 12%, but also in North Warwickshire. In terms of the swing that we're seeing, we need about a 5% swing to actually take this parliamentary seat. We are now seeing a swing in excess of 15-16%. That means that this becomes a Reform UK parliamentary seat. One more MP now on the green benches. Well, we have plenty more elections coming up as well. So if you feel brave and strong enough to stand, then please do apply via the Reform UK party website. And of course, everyone will be welcome to apply.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Councillor Stephen Atkinson. It's so nice to see you. I had such a ball when I came to see you. I have to tell you, by the way, when I went to Lancashire County Council, I arrived and they'd formed a guard of honour outside the council building. I didn't know quite what to do. It's a huge task that you've undertaken. How's it been those first few months? I mean, it must feel like a long time now.
It feels like a lifetime. but we have, I mean, just to give you the scale, 2.3 billion turnover, 13,500 members of staff, and we've got to bring all those people with us. And we've worked really hard to make them feel secure, make them feel that they can deliver. We're cutting away the knotweed of years of policy that's kept them suppressed. We're setting them free to deliver. So, yeah, it's been tough. And as Nigel said, when you lift the bonnet, you see a lot of unpleasant things. And we've lifted the bonnet. We're seeing things that we're thinking, wow, why did they do that? Why did they do that? So one of the big criticisms we had at the beginning was, you have no experience. But we have some of the brightest people I've ever seen in politics.
So it's interesting you say that. I was very struck by the age differences, the people in your cabinet, they're all different ages, different experiences, different walks of life. So refreshing, actually, because they've actually done something.
Absolutely. They've worked in the United States, they've had lots of different careers, and they bring all that experience and all that knowledge and all that challenge every day. And, you know, I was just looking at this morning when I went on the car park. We're the first in at 7:30. Yeah. We leave at 6 o'clock. We have respect from the staff. We respect the staff. But and the staff can feel the change. They can feel this is a time for change, a chance for change, a chance to deliver more.
And I saw that because we were walking down the corridor and I think we were talking about the fact you were concerned that the staff would be against a reform-controlled council. It's quite the contrary.
In Lancashire it is.
Yes.
And we've worked really hard on that. We've given them the chance to shine. We've motivated them. But we are there to hold them to account. We are there to set the policy. And we are there to scrutinise their performance. But we do that in a fair and professional way that makes them feel empowered, makes them feel they can deliver.
Yeah. I mentioned, actually, you are crucial, actually, in the bigger picture, because we have to prove that we're competent in local government so that people trust us when we come to form the next government of the United Kingdom. That is what I see when I came to see you. You are so passionate, so dedicated, and you put the people of Lancashire first.
Absolutely. Every day we ask this same question. Is this if what we're doing, does it improve the lives of residents? And if it doesn't, why are we doing it? And it's a simple question, but it keeps you honest and stops you getting sidetracked.
What's the biggest challenge you've come across?
The previous two administrations invested all of our reserves in government and corporate bonds, £550 million, and they've lost £350 million in value. So we have all of our reserves we can't use. The other challenge is we have ever-growing demand and the government is not giving us the money to meet that demand. But we're up for the challenge. We're going to deliver on that challenge. We know how important this is, not just for Lancashire, but for the credibility of reform in the country.
It's extraordinary, actually, meeting councillors, and sometimes some very simple actions have such huge results. I remember talking to one councillor who there was a gentleman in a wheelchair who couldn't actually get past this great big bush. I think this might have been in Lancashire, actually. We couldn't get past the bush because it was overgrown, and it just took someone to go and cut the bush down that then empowered that man to be able to go shopping. I mean, it's simple stuff, isn't it?
It's in the detail.
Yeah.
But it's also about bringing pride back. One of the things that we're doing before the Remembrance Day is cleaning all around all the war memorials, making people feel pride in the place. We've cleaned... you look at the signs in Lancashire, they've not been cleaned, the roadsides, in 25 years. We've cleaned over 4,000. It's little things that doesn't cost a lot of money but makes people feel pride where they are, makes them feel part of a community, makes them feel a sense of being in that place. And civic pride is something that never gets talked about, and we've brought it into our policy portfolio for this year.
And do you think that's had a difference? Because most ordinary people, I don't think, have really thought much about their council, or at least who's running that council. Has that changed since you've been in?
Absolutely. I think traditionally a lot of politicians have been passengers. They haven't been open to challenge. They haven't been open to those conversations. Why are we doing this? Why are we not doing that? And we bring a total fresh outlook on this. And the great thing is about the 53 councillors you mentioned, is we're a family. We don't fall out, we don't play politics, we just all push forward to deliver for people of Lancashire. We're aware of the responsibility we have, and we're determined to deliver.
Can I just ask you, well done. One of the things I enjoy every week is watching how many councillors we've gained every single week, and I think we won 4 out of 5 elections last week. We have some more tomorrow. Tomorrow. But just in terms of that, we are looking for people to stand to be a councillor. Now, I know there are lots of people probably in this room who may well think, I want to stand, or at least I'm thinking about it, or be interested. What would you say to those people, or indeed watching at home, who think, I want to do something, I want to restore civic pride, I want to put something back into my community, I actually want these places to thrive and to grow? What's your message to them?
Well, I always think of what Edmund Burke said, and I'll paraphrase this. All it takes for bad things to happen is for good men and women to do nothing. And I think we've got good men and women in this country who can now see that they need to do something. They love the country, they love the family, they love the community. And I don't think there's a better way of doing that than being a councillor, because you are really rooted in your local surroundings. I would say it is rewarding, and sometimes you'll be a lonely voice, but if you're honest to yourself, honest to your principles, you'll be respected, and you'll make a difference to many people at a very local level where you interact with people on their lives every day. So it's a fantastically satisfying thing to do. And don't worry about not having a lack of experience. Just worry about being there for the right reasons, and it will all fall into place.
That's a brilliant message. You and I have spoken privately about the stresses and strains of what you're trying to achieve. You said you've got increasing sort of burden on you. People want more and more and more. There's less and less money. Central government doesn't give you the kind of money that you need. What's the one thing, if you had a magic wand and there was one thing that you could ask for that would help you as a council to deliver what you want, what would that be?
Central government, get out of the way. If you look at how the council started, they started in the typhoid epidemics of the 1850s, where local communities came together to deliver clean water. So they were all based in the local communities, but government sees them as an arm of national government and wants to deliver policies through them and doesn't want to listen to them. And that's where we've gone wrong. We should empower these councils to be close to the communities, to set their priorities, to look after local folk, put local folk first, instead of central government diktat. And if there could be a great repeal act to allow councils to be councils as they used to be, I think that would be fantastic.
And just very quickly, I have to wrap, but just very quickly, yesterday was, I think we may be having mic problems. Yesterday, we hosted a reception for you in Parliament in London. You all got together, you were there, Nigel made a speech, Sarah made a speech, I made a speech. Thank you very much. Nigel made a speech, I made a speech, Sarah made a speech, Richard made a speech, everyone made a speech. What was that day like? You went into the Palace of Westminster and Nigel said no one could have expected us to... there were so many of us, we couldn't fit in the room.
Yeah, we had to have 2 sessions. It was so exciting, 100 people who travelled down to Westminster. When you walk past Big Ben and you look at those little St George's shields just around the clock face, it brings a tear to my eye. It's just a fantastic place, the mother of parliaments, such a proud country, and to be at the heart of it in Westminster Hall, meeting these really brave, great people who've stood up for this country and they're putting the country first. It's inspiring, really inspiring, David.
Look, I have seen how committed, how dedicated you are, how passionate you are. I had the great privilege to come and meet you and all your councillors and the team running that council. I think you're doing a tremendous job, don't you, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you very much.
Put your hands together, Councillor Stephen Atkinson. Thank you very much. So there you have it, Reform UK in action, in motion and ascending the polls as well. So tonight you have heard from Dan Barker, of course, board member of Reform UK, political commentator and professor of politics, Matt Goodwin, and the leader, of course, of Lancashire County Council, Stephen Atkinson as well. The message on the ground here in Wigan is overwhelming, as it is across the whole of the United Kingdom. Britain is in big trouble. Britain deserves better, and Britain needs reform.